So Google does some really interesting things, which I think you may hear a little bit more about. They aren't just looking at physical activity, but within their cafeterias, they've also enacted something that we call choice architecture, and that is start to kind of give cues about what is healthy food, what is less healthy. They really have taken their idea of what an office space can do to all aspects of people's lives. And I mean, we'll hear more about the data behind that and why they did it. Better to hear from them than for me to surmise why they did it. But this really kind of falls in line with what we're talking about with Fitwell. And Fitwell is also that kind of holistic idea of what are all of both the physical design but also policy and operational changes that you can enact within a space to really kind of think about that holistic impact of employees. And it doesn't hurt to say that there's evidence that this directly impacts productivity. So what's really great about the design of a workplace is not only is it good for your health, but it's also good for business, which is going to make my life a lot easier as we start to bring Fitwell to the market. So without further ado, I will welcome the panel and I will start to introduce them. So Adam Lutz is real estate project executive for Google. Adam has managed the construction of over 1.5 million square feet. Manoush, you should talk to him about the stress of construction, including Google's new campus here in New York City, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. Michele, who's coming up to the stage here. Michele Neptune is the Director of Sustainability at HLW International, and her firm designed the Google Oxygen Project, which is on the 6th, 7th, and 8th floor of Chelsea Market, another building you're probably all very familiar with. And then Eleni Reed is the Chief Greening Officer at the U.S. General Service Administration, GSA, to those of us who like to use the abbreviation. Eleni played a really pivotal role in creating Fitwell, along with the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And the GSA has already used Fitwell in 78 of their projects across the country, which we will be hearing more about, and is going to continue to roll that out actually in another 22 buildings. So we can hear about kind of their experience. And what we really love about that is that we have two kind of different kind of companies, or different workplaces, and yet they're both doing a similar thing. And finally, Manoush, thank you for coming back. Manoush is going to actually moderate this panel, so thank you very much.
Okay, so let's start. Let's give him a round of applause. So it's kind of interesting. We've got the federal government down there. Hello, Eleni. Hello. In the middle, we've got HLW, which you designed for all kinds of different sectors. And then, Adam, you are representing Google tonight. How do you? And congratulations, right?
I'll do my best.
So let's talk about motivation, right? I remember when I first started working like 20 years ago, like there was like the occasional fun run, right? And then sometimes like people were like, oh, the vending machine has pretzels. And that was considered like the healthy snack at the time. So like, where are we in this transformation of the workplace, and what are the employers? What are they thinking when they start to do these sorts of things? So let's start out with you. Congratulations again.
Oh, thank you very much. I think one of the big things that changed was, I know when I started a little more than 20 years ago, that it was, you went into the office, you badged in or you punched in or whatever you did to denote that you were there for the day, and you did your work, and then you punched in or badged out and you went home. And that's all gone. Like the world has changed to this place where it is very nebulous about when you're at work and when you're at home and when your personal life is and when your work life is. It's all just one journey now. It's just life. And part of your life is doing some sort of job where somebody pays you money to do a certain thing. But it turns out that along the way you make a friend and you have a personal life, but your personal life kind of overlays. And there's times when you're sitting on the couch and an email comes in and you answer said email, because it's just kind of what you do. And then there's plenty of times when you're at work and you take a picture and you post on Instagram while you're there. These are all things that's just back and forth, and the lines aren't what they used to be. And there's plenty of times, I think, and I would assume that some of you out there are probably feeling the same way. It's your friends are no longer different than the people you work with. Like those are the same thing in a lot of cases. I know there's plenty of days where I leave the office and go hang out with more people that I was working with just a few minutes ago, and we go do something else. And there's this definite ambiguity, I think, now between work and life. And I don't think it's a lack of work-life balance. I think it's actually an improvement on the work-life balance because it's all the same. It's just you. There's no longer this place. I worked for before I came to Google, this is going to sound crazy, but I worked for 10 years at State Farm Insurance. And
Crazy!
Yeah, you're laughing. It wasn't funny. But there was very much this. I'd pull into the parking lot in the morning in my suit and my tie, and I had to leave a part of me in that car. Right, and all day long as I was going through my day, whether I was in a meeting and some stupid thing would pop into my head, and those of you in the audience who've worked with me know that happens a lot. But now I just get to say that stupid thing, and people laugh or whatever, and it's just me. But back then I had to hold that all back in, so there was some percentage of me that I was not actually able to bring to work because I had to repress that. And so that was some percentage that I could not use to be productive. And that goes away in my life now. Like I can just be me. And I feel like the people that I work with are also the same. You bring your whole self to work and you just get to be your full self, which is much more productive.
So what's that sparking in you, this idea of, culture, really, like the way we talk to each other at work? How does that spill over into design? Whoever wants to go.
So from a sustainability point of view, there's always been a focus on human health and wellness, and it was a focus from an indoor air quality perspective. I think what's really exciting is in the last few years, there's been a shift towards what's called regenerative design. So instead of just trying to do less harm, you're trying to actually create healthy spaces. And I think we see a lot of that is not just physical, but it's social and it's mental. And instead of clocking out and leaving half of yourself in your car, you can bring yourself into your office and you can interact with the people that you work with in these spaces that make you feel good. And this is really evidenced in rating systems like WELL and the Living Building Challenge. They've really brought this to the market. And I think that from a design point, it's really exciting time.
So it might come to a surprise to a few of you in the room, but the federal government is actually pretty progressive on workplaces. It's, in fact, our agency is the landlord, if you will, for the federal civilian agencies. So we house 1 million federal workers across the nation. And right now, there's for the last, I would say, 5 years, there's been a huge rethink on workplace, and a lot of our own GSA office space for our employees is really, it's designed around mobility, collaborative space. We have hoteling. We even have active workstations with desks that you can raise and so on. And one of the reasons we do that is to engage the client agencies for whom we provide real estate services. They come to our offices, they can visit, they can see that it's actually a very flat structure. Our leadership sits in the same areas as the employees do. It's very collaborative. It's more conducive to teaming. So there's been a change in how we conceive and how we execute workspace and how we want to engage client agencies. On the health perspective, I think this is something that we as a large real estate organization have been tackling for a long, long time. And I think it ties back to some of what you were saying, Michele, on sustainability. We have a huge sustainability platform. So we've been looking at things like indoor environmental quality, sustainable acquisition, where we locate our facilities, proximity to transit, and of course our high performance green buildings program. We look at design elements. We also have a number of facilities that have amenities like childcare, like cafeterias, and we have healthy food guidelines. So we've been doing this for a long, long time, and I think the progression here has been to think about employee well-being in a much more holistic way. So it's not necessarily just what you're eating at the cafeteria. It's what's the indoor environment like? What is your parking policy? What are you doing for indoor air? So it really is a lot more holistic, and I can talk about the Fit Well system in a moment. But one of the beauties of that is that it serves as an integrator, and it looks at health in a really holistic way. And part of our agency's mission is to support the missions of our client agencies. So anything we can do as a real estate organization to help our client agencies execute a mission, their mission is what we're really striving for.
So I guess I'm wondering, though, how do you know it's working? You know what I mean? Like, it feels good to be in these places, and I can see on my Fitbit that I'm getting more steps in, but, like, what are the quantifiables? I mean, you have 1 million people working in your spaces. How many? Google has 3 billion people. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how many people work at Google. Everyone I know seems to work at Google now. Like, what are you actually measuring to see? Is it productivity? Is it truly wellness, sort of that they don't need to go see the nurse as often? I don't know. What is it?
Yeah, it's always the trick, right? That's kind of the golden ticket that we're all looking for. And it'd be great if you could just design a space and throw a bunch of people in there, and then at the end there'd be like some ticket that would pop out and tell you how productive everybody is. It's not quite that easy, but I will tell you that more than any place that I've ever been, Googlers are very good at, let's go with sharing feedback about anything and everything, literally under the sun. And when you open a space, it's so easy for somebody like me to sit at a table, and this, I apologize if it sounds like I'm kissing up to the crowd here, but it is so easy for people in my position to sit at a table, right, and we pound our fist and we say, look, we want it to be active design, and we want people to love the space, and we want it to be well, and we want it to be sustainable, and we want it to be all of these things. But those are all just, it's just all gobble, 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 right? Those are just words. At the end of the day, somebody has to sit back and actually put a pen on a piece of paper or pixels on a screen and make this happen. And for this project and many others, for us, that's been HLW, and the ability to make that come to life and to watch people walk into those spaces on the first day or the 20th day or the 40th day or the 80th day and truly see them just like there's a particular space. There was a couple of pictures that went by here of it. I see the same people sitting in the same places. Like they can't work at their desk anymore. It's like they just want to go to these other places or want to collaborate in these spaces, and they'll stop me in the hallway and they'll say thank you, or they'll come to sessions and they'll say how much they like it. And there's a retention quality to that. Like if you're going to hire the best and the brightest and the people who are apt to give the most feedback, it is difficult to keep those people happy. And they have other places, right? Like we're not the only company they can go to. These are people who have, kind of their own golden ticket. They go any place they want to go.
Same thing, looking at different stuff?
Well, one of the mechanisms we have is a tenant satisfaction survey, which we push out across our tenant agencies, and we've seen an increase in our score over time. This is hugely important to us. There's one specific component of that survey that deals with how people are feeling about their workplace, the space that they're in. Some of that is under GSA's control. Some of the things are under the tenant agency's control, but that's one mechanism. One of the things we're also trying to do now that we have several buildings that have been benchmarked against the Fitwell rating system is to determine whether there are linkages between the tenant satisfaction score and how they're progressing against the Fitwell benchmark. So that's one way we're looking to investigate. The other thing we're doing is we have a couple of research projects that are underway, and this is led by another office at GSA. They're looking at sort of cutting edge ideas like how does lighting influence your health in the workplace, and really trying to get some quantitative data from workers in the space. The other thing they're doing also is taking a look at how does the indoor environment impact your health, wearing sensor devices, so you actually wear it around your neck.
Like laser tag?
Almost as cool as that, but not quite.
Is that Alex Pentland at MIT, who's the wearable devices where they're measuring how people interact?
I'm not sure it comes from MIT, but it's likely something similar.
And she just tapped into like a secret obsession of mine. I'm like, I know about those.
Yeah, so there's also a lot of research that GSA is trying to do to establish those linkages. I think there's also a lot of interesting research that is coming out of the Harvard School of Public Health health now with the cognitive function scores that are actually higher in green buildings, and seeing how that is hugely attributable to increased ventilation, indoor environmental quality, low VOC materials. So there's a body of research coming out that's really solidifying the business case.
I mean, I'm super curious, Michele, like what you work across all these different sectors, like does what works for one not work for another, do you find?
No.
Really? People are people?
It is not one size fits all. You have clients, we are fortunate enough to have clients like Google who push us.
You only say that because we're on stage.
I say that all the time. Who are really exciting to work with and who help push us and are ready to look at the next best things. And we also have clients who maybe are a little,
More hesitant.
and who are also exciting to work with because we can help bring them to that next level. And there are studies, there's there's Harvard, and what you'll see is there are manufacturers out there, there are contractors who are starting to do their own studies and publish their own results, and a lot of them are hyper-local to New York, which is very useful because it's very different here than it is out west, for example. But what's super exciting as an architect or a designer is to go back to these spaces and see them being lived in and used. And you see people, we could look at numbers, but we can also go to the space and we could see people on the stairs. We can see people having what we call casual collisions and meetings on the stairs and interacting with each other. Or we go and we see them using their sit-stand desks, and some people are standing, and it's like, yes, it's working. We're doing the right thing. So I think for us, it's a matter of working with everyone, all of our clients, and saying, as a bottom line, this is what we're interested in. This is sustainability, and this is health and wellness, and this is really, as Adam said, about attraction and retention of employees, and this is how we can help you get there. And there is they're so receptive to this, more so than I think concepts that we've seen in the last 5 or 10 years, and it's really exciting.
So I'm wondering, in terms of specific examples, okay, so here's my example. We have a big open staircase, and I love it. It's great. I hate the open office. I can't stand it. But I don't know if that's because of what my job is now, or maybe I got a bad corner or something. I'm not really sure. What are some of the things you've seen that you thought would work, maybe didn't so much? And where do you see, where are you most excited? What are you most excited about? And it can be as subtle or grand as you would like to use.
It's interesting because we're predominantly probably 90+% open workspace, and fairly dense, right? We have a lot of amenity space, and we factor all that amenity space into our calculation on density. So because there's a fair amount of amenity space, that means the desks tend to be a little tighter. And there's this trade-off. I've had people say, well, it's not very efficient, and you can't really focus on getting your task done. And I'm like, well, okay. I mean, sometimes it can be distracting, right? So Betty's talking about something, Susie's talking about something, Bob's talking about something, and it's all, gets everybody kind of worked up. But efficiency isn't necessarily the goal. It's not necessarily the thing. Somebody told me a story one time, I think it was Goodyear, way back in the day. They had decided that their tire wrapping portion of their manufacturing was taking too long, and it really could be automated to be much more efficient. And so they hired an engineering firm who spent a ton of money and developed an automated tire wrapper at the end of the assembly line. And so they spent the money, they had this thing built, they put it at the end of the assembly line, the tires rolled off, they very efficiently wrapped the tires and put them on the pallet. And then one day somebody said, does anybody know why we wrap the tires? And it turned out they were wrapping the tires because they didn't want to scuff up the white walls that they hadn't made in 20 years. But efficiency isn't always the thing that you're going for, right? There is a collaborative energy that comes when you are sitting close together. There is a collaboration and a betterment of thought, an escalation of passion that takes place when you are sitting in close proximity to other smart people who are working with you. I mean, it happens in colleges. I think we can probably all agree that there is a difference of experience if you live on campus and if you live off campus, or if you go to a hard brick and mortar university, or if you study online. There's a difference of experience. It might be much more efficient to sit in your study in your living room or in your house and do it online, but you do not get that escalation of thought and passion by communicating and bouncing ideas off of your partners. And for us, that trumps.
You didn't mean that, though. Sorry. That word will never be the same, I'm afraid. It can't be a verb anymore.
It's just more bigly good.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Tremendously. Go on, Michele. Sorry. I feel like we could go on and on.
But it's also the responsibility of the designers
Right.
who are working with owners who are saying, Google is doing open space, we want to do open space. But you need to work with them and understand what is the right solution for that company and the way they work. And what we are doing in a lot of our spaces is providing a variety of workplaces. So yes, you might have an open space, but you have a huddle room, a telephone room, a quiet room, a mother's room. It's about giving occupants the opportunity to choose the environment that is most appropriate for the task at hand. So it's not one solution fits all, and it's about thinking about what is the best way to apply those solutions, and that's really important.
I mean, Starbucks figured that out, right?
Nah.
This is why we all go to Starbucks. How many go to a Starbucks in the morning, and it's filled with, writers and poets and screenwriters who are sitting there in chaos. The espresso machine is going, and people are in and out, and money's changing hands. It's chaos, and they're working there. Why do they do it every day? They like the energy and the passion of it.
I would also echo it's not a one-size-fits-all. Just to take our offices as an example, it was a huge change management exercise for an agency like GSA just for our own space. It took, when we moved from our 26 Federal Plaza to World Trade Center, where we were going from what you typically think of a federal workspace to World Trade Center, which is going to be open plan, hoteling, no small areas for conversations just to collaborate. It was a 1-year effort to do change management, to get everybody ready to kind of think about how you were going to work. And I think we're still in transition in terms of, some people adapt really well, others are, don't know how to respect others when they're working. I mean, it's a huge transition, but I think it's been a really, for me, I find it to be extremely useful and beneficial, because you can happenstance meet somebody and a lot more easily from another department. I think it helps bust silos, because you can really sit anywhere and you can really figure out what the synergies are between your different programs and really advance, I think, in general. So
I just have time for one more question, and I want to ask about, building a movement around this. And I guess, Eleni, maybe you can talk about that first with Fitwell. For me, it's interesting to see. The notion of work is changing, right? So I found a solution to my open space office, which is that I joined.
I knew you could do it.
I know, but I joined a silent workspace that I go to once or twice a week for the writing work that I have to do. So I just think it's interesting. I work from people are working in so many different ways. They're working from home. They're working from workspaces. They're coming into the office for certain things. It's all changing. So how do we sort of take this movement farther and make great design just built into what is the workspace?
Well, I know we're in a crowd of designers, but I do have to talk about operations, because I think that a lot of what we're doing is in existing buildings, and there's not always a huge budget that is available to do a complete retrofit of the space. So I think some of the things that can really help are rethinking what you have in your cafeteria, applying health food guidelines, your parking policy, your indoor environmental quality policy. So there's a lot of things that you're already doing that are really, I think, counting towards how you're promoting, an environment that's conducive to well-being. Where I see this going for an agency like GSA is that we definitely are, seeing the linkage between what we're doing from a design standpoint and operations standpoint, and how that can help support the wellness of our tenant agencies in the buildings. And it's like I said earlier, it's really a holistic tool. It helps integrate so many different aspects of health into one package. And I think for those of us who've used green building certification systems, it's always helpful to have that checklist, because when you're designing or when you're operating, it's a reminder of strategies that you can implement. Some are costly, some are not. And from an existing building standpoint, you might be at a certain level. You've done, maybe you've implemented XYZ strategies, but there may be one strategy that you haven't implemented, and a tool like Fitwell can help you identify what that is, and it might not be that costly, or you can start planning for it, because it's sort of a roadmap to how you improve over time. One of the things that's really powerful about this too is that because it was designed initially, by the federal government, it's, what can you do on an incremental basis? But it also has huge value for the broader market, which is why GSA and CDC really were interested in making the tool available to industry.
I think we're seeing the development of tools that are less cumbersome than some of these very large third-party rating systems. And I think that that's a great way for projects from large to small to start incorporating some of these designs. What I would love to see is some code. We have code for lighting power density and code for ventilation. We have code for Legionnaires. It would be nice if we started incorporating health and wellness into our code, so it's something that we have to incorporate regardless of what your owner's interest is. And as responsible designers, it's something that we're trying to incorporate in what we do from day-to-day work.
I think I would say that one of kind of our company mottos is focus on the user and all else will follow. And I think if we all think about that as well, focusing on the people who are going to be in the space and figuring out the best ways to make that space work for them, to allow them to do the thing that that is going to make them the best them, so they don't have to leave that part of person in the parking lot. And part of it is culture. The change management is definitely part of it. The general culture of the organization, but the space itself, challenging people's vision on what normal is, so that they can then go into their job, whatever that happens to be, and challenge what normal is in that, and kind of elevate everything, I think is key. So if we focus on the people who are going to use the space, I think that's it.
We have to leave it there. Eleni, Michele, Adam, thank you so much, and thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you all. So we have a great room of people here, and I would like to thank you all the panelists. Congratulations, Google, again. Thank you, Manoush. It was wonderful to have you. Thank you all also for spending your Friday night with us. I mean, we love what we do, but it's wonderful to see that you guys, share a little bit of that passion too. So thank you. Good night.